So good evening and welcome to the core, Rockford Lutheran. This is Don Court's academic dean, and we're here to talk about junior college planning. An exciting topic for us at any point in time, but I know a topic that probably is a little bit different this year as a result of the different circumstances that we're dealing with in our community, our schools, and in our nation, and our world right now. As we do that, as we think about those opportunities down the road and those exciting things we have to anticipate in the spite of circumstances we have right now. Let's do that in the context of understanding our relationship of who we are in this world as we understand our relationship with God. Let's begin with prayer. Holy Father, we thank you for the opportunity we have to enjoy the blessings that you've bestowed upon us, and at times of difficulty and uncertainty, sometimes that's the best time for us to recognize and to really take stock in the many blessings you've given us. We thank you most of all, Lord, for the blessings of these children, these young people that are preparing for such important steps of their future. Bless us now as we take time to learn about those steps, to learn about those opportunities that are out there, and to prepare well for those important elements that are just on the horizon, that we can help these young people continue to develop the talents that you've given them, the abilities you've blessed them with, the passions that they have, and help them grow to be the disciples that you've created them to be. We thank you, God, for this opportunity tonight, and ask you to bless us as we continue to grow in your name. Amen. Okay, so we're going to be talking about a lot of different topics tonight. As we take a look at the general topics that you see here on your screen. First of all, I want to mention that if you have other things that come to mind as we go through the course of the program, you should be able to drop a chat this direction through the box that's there on your screen, and I'll be glad to answer questions that come up, so feel free to do that as we go on through the evening. But those are the topics that we're looking at as we kind of come to conclusion, really, of a lot of things that we've been talking about over the years. If you've joined us for these previous programs, junior high, freshman, sophomore years, and so on. The topics that we have in some cases are really reaching that climax, because we're at that point where some important decisions be made, important plans to be made, and so that really is the key of what we're talking about tonight. The place to start is recognizing that obviously what we're looking at in terms of our educational future has a big impact on our future opportunities of employment, our future income, our future college experiences. But I want to think about it more in terms of just the future that we have to use those gifts and passions that God's given us to their fullest extent. And that's what we're really looking at as we consider what sort of options are down the road. What is it that's going to fit best with your student, and what's going to just give them that sense of comfort that, yes, this is really where I'm intended to be. This is what God has in store for me. This is where I'm going to fit in and fit well. And so while the economic aspects are a certain part of it, we really want to focus on how are we going to make best use of the gifts that God's given us and develop those in the way that's going to be most helpful for our futures and for the future of Him and His kingdom. One of the things I want to talk about is there's some interesting research that's come out of Minnesota State dealing with different types of jobs that exist in our economy. And what they found is that if you take a look at the 10 jobs that people would participate in across the board that require some sort of after high school education, you'll see as you take a look at the slide here, one of those positions is going to require a master's degree or more. And two of those positions are going to require some other kind of university degree, typically a bachelor's degree. And 7 of those positions are going to require some type of certificate, some kind of advanced education, possibly an associate's degree of some sort. And what they found is that, interestingly enough, over the course of about the last 50 years, this ratio has held pretty true. Now, recognize there are a lot of jobs that are out there in the market that don't involve or don't require any education beyond high school. Those, as we saw in the previous slide, are going to limit us in terms of our future potentials and that sort of thing. But as we take a look at those positions that do require some sort of after high school education, typically this is the breakdown that usually happens. Now, think about it in terms of, you break your leg and you go to a hospital. You're probably going to see one doctor, and you're probably going to see a couple of nurses that have a bachelor's degree. But while you're doing that, you're also going to see possibly a phlebotomist and a radiologist and some other sort of x-ray technician or a whole host of other trained health professionals that don't necessarily have bachelor's or advanced degrees, but are certainly trained and doing quite well in terms of their income and stability and options for jobs and those sorts of things. And so those would be the seven that require some sort of additional education. Now, sometimes as I take a look at this breakdown as it relates to our students, there's a little bit different a mix that usually occurs here. I would say in our case, we're frequently looking at 2 or 3 people that are going to be looking at a master's or an advanced degree out of every 10 of our students that graduate, and be looking instead at about 4 or 5 that are going to get some kind of other university degree, bachelor's degree, that sort of thing, and 2 or 3 that are going to have some other sort of position that's going to involve a certificate or an associate's degree. Typically, we'll have about 70% of our students that'll go on to a 4-year institution after they graduate from high school, and about 30% go on to a community college or some sort of other trade. Now, recognize as well that as we talk about things like trades, and one of the reasons I want to bring this up is to recognize that there's a whole host of opportunities that are out there for you individual students that are really oriented towards who God's gifted you to be and what he's gifted you to do and called you to do. And so we don't want to demean different positions or different opportunities on the basis of whether or not they involve college or how much college they involve and those sorts of things. The point really is some sort of post-high school education is really going to be key for people to be able to really develop their full potential and to be able to accomplish what they want to in terms of career and income and that sort of thing in the future. So as you think about that, recognize that there are a lot of different options. For example, people that are going to go into the electrical trade once they complete their training, they're going to have an associate's degree. A lot of people that go into other trades are also going to begin that training and education at Rock Valley, taking college level coursework. So as a school, we're really here to make sure that no matter what direction you're going to go, no matter where you're going to fit into these different options in your future, you're going to be well prepared for that. And you're going to have the skills academically, as well as the study skills and just the character qualities are going to help you be a successful student, no matter what direction God takes you in that venture. So that's just some helpful information that hopefully shares a perspective. There are a lot of different opportunities out there for people that are coming from all sorts of different backgrounds and interests and so on. This is a screen that you've probably seen before if you've been here for previous programs, because we've talked for the last 3, 4, 5 years now, what are colleges looking for? And we've talked about that in the context of saying, well, they're looking for graduates, but remember, they're looking for college graduates. They're looking for students that are going to come to their institution and be successful, be successful academically, be successful socially, and be people that really fit in well with what their institution is all about. And obviously, as they're doing that, they're looking for students that have a GPA that's going to indicate they're successful or going to be successful at college level education. They're going to be looking at what classes you took and how much did those classes prepare you for your anticipated college experience. How much did those classes challenge you in terms of your academic ability and therefore really prepare you for the rigors of a college experience and so on. And they're obviously going to be looking at entrance test scores and those sorts of things. And they're going to be looking at a lot of different things about what you did outside of just the academic world as well. One of the things I'll mention, and it starts there in number 5, talking about a resume, because this is a point at which you really start needing to pull together those sorts of experiences that you've had over the last number of years. Sometimes those elements are significant when it comes to the college application process itself. In many cases, those outside of school experiences are even more significant when it comes to scholarship applications and those sorts of things that organizations are really looking for people that are really engaged beyond just a classroom. They're looking for people that are engaged in their community. They're looking for people that are engaged in being of service and help to others. And those are some key qualities that a lot of scholarship granting organizations are looking for. So that's why we really want you to consider take a look right now, what sort of things you could be doing in terms of growing your resume of activities that took place outside the classroom. And obviously that can be athletics and volunteer opportunities. Look for leadership opportunities in particular, being in charge of an organization at school or being in charge of an activity at your church or some other sort of community activity. Because that's the type of thing that can really set you apart from people that participate but don't necessarily take the extra initiative to be a leader in a situation. And so that initiative sends an important message to a school that this is a student that really is interested in being more and doing more and getting engaged more, because they're looking for students that are going to really get engaged in their college experience. Again, they recognize that students that really get involved in their college community, in their college campus, and that culture, in that family of students at that university, are going to be much more likely to stay, are going to be much more likely to be successful and complete their full 4-year program as they really connect with that community. So those things continue to be important, and that's why. As we take a look at test scores, for most of our students, ACT is still a primary test for colleges, ones that most colleges in the Midwest are most familiar with. Again, if you're looking at schools that are going to be out on the East or West Coast, SAT is a little bit more familiar there. As you take a look at these scores, one of the things I'll mention is obviously our students still score very well. Recognize that in our case, neighborhood of about 80% of our students take the ACT. When you throw in the SAT, we're probably pushing close to 90% of our students that take one of those two tests. And that far exceeds the percentages that exist otherwise nationwide, which is a little bit closer to a 50% range. So we've got a lot of students taking the test. And so in spite of the fact that our population percentage really exceeds the norm, we're still scoring very well. So a wide span of our students are scoring very well on their ACT and SAT entrance tests, and therefore in a position to get into the schools that they're interested in. I mentioned a couple of things here too as well. We do continue to offer resources and course opportunities for students that are involved in test prep. So you can see me about that at a later date if you have some particular questions about that. We'll talk a little bit about what's available online for us now. Mr. Sievert this year has had a class he's been working on, has provided some test prep opportunities for students as well. Just to answer a couple other questions that are out there. And I know there's a lot of things going on right now just in the past few weeks that have raised a lot of concerns about students, about their future and academic opportunities and that sort of thing. First of all, I want to say, rest assured, we are in a position, and I'm thankful to the Lord that as a school, we're particularly in a good position to continue to get you well prepared for your college experience, not too far down the road. So academically, what you're able to still being able to accomplish these coming weeks is going to help continue to put you in a good position. But there are other things that we hear about that are going on relative to a lot of universities now that have closed down and students are working from homes and that sort of thing. At the same time, those universities are also, from what I see, still being very aggressive in planning some online orientation opportunities for this year's seniors who are going to be their freshmen next year. So, important steps are being taken to make sure that everyone's going to have that opportunity to go on to the university that they're interested in, that they're feeling connected to and called to, and so on. So rest assured that the things that need to happen to get you there will continue to happen, and we'll certainly continue to walk you through that path. One of the reasons why I mentioned that relative to this screen and this topic in particular is we do know that the April and the May ACT, SAT administrations have been canceled. We still have on plan the June and July administrations, and those will be offered at our school here as well. So those are still opportunities that are for you down the road. We'll keep you posted as we get closer to those dates relative to what that situation is looking like. But rest assured that we'll continue to provide you with the opportunities you need to get those things accomplished in a timely fashion. You do want to be taking a look at taking those summer tests because that's a good time for you to jump into that right after your junior year is complete. Also gives you a chance to still take some of the fall tests if you want some follow-up results as you get into August, September, October, those sorts of timeframes. And for the most part, that's still going to be early enough for most college applications. So while I'm talking about that, though, and let me remind you of the time frame that we're kind of working with here. As second semester juniors, unfortunately, some people think, we've got lots of time to work on this. And, we'll just wait till summer, and then we've got all next year to decide what we're going to do with the college. Yeah, that's not really true. Keep in mind, and this is what I'll tell juniors as I continue to work with you this year, is when you come back to school next August, you need to be done with your college search process, because in August and September, you're in the role of completing applications and seeking out recommendations from teachers and pastors and so on, employers, et cetera. But you need to be ready to start putting those applications out. Now, you're obviously not in a position to have to decide right away, but a lot of schools have November deadlines. And the other thing that comes into play even more significantly now than it has in the past, because of some changes in the financial aid schedule, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. One of the things that needs to happen too is you need to get yourself in line not only for a seat at that university, but you need to get yourself in line for the scholarship funds that are available. Yes, there are a lot of schools right now that are still accepting students, and that'll continue to happen through the rest of this month. Most of the seniors right now should be pretty close to making final decisions on their acceptance letters and that sort of thing. But the reality is that you need to get in line for the scholarship funds well before that. If you're not at the point of completing your applications yet at this point, you might still be able to get a seat, but recognize that most of the scholarship funds have already been allocated to other applicants. So we'll talk about that a little more later, but just kind of keep that in mind. Again, the time frame is you really want to be looking at being done with your college search process when you come back in August as a senior. That's when you're going to start actually filling out your applications. One of the things that we see here is we're thinking about what you as a student are looking for has a lot to do with who you are, who God made you to be, what your talents, abilities, and gifts are. And so we've got a number of tools that are available to us. Again, a lot of them, these are online on the Counselor's Corner webpage that are going to be helpful to you in terms of figuring out what your particular interests are, taking a look at various career fields, taking a look at searching out institutions, colleges then that prepare students for those career fields, and so on. So those resources are out there. We've used those some in the past. Sophomore year, we started using that career information system, and you should be familiar with that, and certainly encourage you to take a look at that. On Counselor's Corner, there's that whole entire system, which provides a number of surveys and interest inventories for you to fill out to help get some ideas about what you want to major on. There are also some other links to other surveys and sites that work specifically on helping you find out majors that might be of interest to you. So take a look at those resources on Counselor's Corner and spend some time digging into those. It's gonna take a little bit of time. If you have some ideas about what you want to major in, then you're a little bit ahead of the game. You can still use that career information system to then start looking at universities that are, what size you're interested in and location that you're interested in, geography, and what kind of community they're in, that sort of thing. And they'll help you narrow down the list then of schools that you should be considering as you look at the particular major that you're interested in. One of the things that I'll mention as we're into this topic of what are you looking for, I encourage students as you go through this search process to kind of think of the schools that you're interested in, you're looking for in a number of different tiers. You're going to start first with these reach schools. These are the schools, oh, I'd really like to go to that school. It's going to be really tough when I get into it. Man, I'd really like to go to that school. So those are your reach schools, and you should look at 2 or 3 of those kind of reach schools that are really going to be up there, a challenge for you to get into. Then you'll have some other schools that are just kind of on target. Those are schools that, yeah, I can get into those. I'm still going to make sure I get the grades up and I do a good job on the test, but I'm really pretty sure I can get into those. And then you've got another level that these are automatics. I know I can get into those schools. That's not going to be any kind of an issue. And encourage you to have 2, 3, 4 schools in each of those categories that you're looking at that fit the interests that you have relative to what size of school, what location, urban, suburban, those sorts of things. A lot of different options out there for you, but think about it in those sorts of different strata of schools that you're looking for, just to kind of help give you a picture of some of the distinctions between the different types of schools. You might even want to be deliberate about visiting the schools in each of those 3 levels and that sort of thing. And as we've mentioned before, hopefully you've already been doing some college visits, and certainly taking the opportunity here in obviously the future now to spend some more time doing that, but especially as you look into the spring of this year and into summer, a great time for you to be doing visits. You still do have time to do some visits in the fall as well. You will want to be getting your applications in, but there's nothing wrong with applying to 5, 6, 8, 10 universities and then going around and doing some follow-up visits to the 2 or 3 that you're really interested in as a part of making that final decision process. So those sorts of things are certainly amenable to the process, but want to encourage you to continue to really being serious about making some of those searches now as you think about that in the future. This is a point at which I want to talk a little bit about the ASVAB program that we just completed a few weeks back. Now, for you as parents, recognize that your students already received a copy of their ASVAB results. Hopefully they brought that home, you had a chance to look at it. Hopefully it's not still in their locker. If it's stuffed in a bag someplace that they brought home earlier this week, let's spend some time trying to look for that. One of the handouts that, that hopefully you'll be able to take a look at that's going to be posted on our website is a handout like this that talks about the ASVAB program. If you do have your results students, you'll be able to find the information that I'm talking about right here on your results sheet. There's an access code that's on your results sheet that you can use as you get into the ASVAB program website that you see here listed on this URL. Those are going to be helpful to you because what ASVAB will do is they'll take your test scores that you received on each of those different areas, and they'll kind of give you some suggestions relative to what type of career area that those test results indicate you probably most interested in and be most effective at and efficient at, and that sort of thing. That's one of the things I really like about the ASVAB test. It does have some just regular math and verbal results for you to take a look at too, that makes it to some degree similar to what you do with ACT and SAT, so it's helpful practice in that regard. But it has a number of other components that are a part of the process as well, and those other components will help give you an idea of where you stand in terms of other types of interests and other types of careers, whether it be medical or engineering or something more technical and so on. A lot of helpful results there that it will show you based on the results that you got on the ASVAB test. So take a look at that site, plug in your access code that is available to you on that that report handout that you received, and spend some time taking a look at the resources that are available there. Now, notice, parents, you can tell from this this page here on the PowerPoint, there is a site specific for parents as well to take a look at what's available for you in terms of helping your student along in this process. But it really is a helpful tool to use in conjunction with some of the other things that we've done. You know, as freshmen, you guys all took the Reese personality inventory. That gives you a little bit of idea of what kind of a motivation is important to you and what sort of a type of thing will get you interested and excited and so on. And that can be something that can be helpful for you in terms of your future planning. You also took the pre-ACT as sophomores. That included a career interest component as well, and kind of showed you a little slices of the pie on the round career picture of where you might be most interested and might want to plug in. So those sorts of things, coupled with now what you get in the ASVAB program, the intent is here we kind of keep coming back to that issue of, you know, what are you interested in? What are you gifted at? What's God created you and given you the passion to do? And so we've kind of continued to develop that. This is a year when that really should all come to fruition as you put those previous years' experiences together with what we've done now with ASVAB, with what's available to you on the Illinois Career Learning Institute and that sort of thing. All those are going to be helpful in terms of that that process of figuring out specifically what sort of career you're really going to be interested in, called to, and that sort of thing. So something else that I'll mention is before I passed out those ASVAB results to the students, I made copies of those so that I could hand them out tonight. Obviously that part isn't going to work out real well for us, but if you are interested in getting those ASVAB results, please email me and we can scan them and I can email them to you, and I'll just have these extra copies to keep around for a while. But certainly glad to provide you for that. If you can't find your ASVAB results, we can provide that for you. I think I've also actually got the results from your pre-ACT. If you're interested in that, I can scan those and send it to you as well, so you can start putting together these different pictures of things that it looks like that you're interested in doing in terms of your future. So feel free to email me about that if those are some things that you're interested in. So as we're looking at some specifics now, as we move from the idea of looking at career and interests and those sorts of things, now taking a look at, okay, so what should I be looking at in terms of a school in particular? I've kind of got figured out what I want to do in terms of a career and a major and that sort of thing. What kind of school am I looking for? One of the questions to answer would be, you know, am I going to look for a 2-year school or a 4-year school? A lot of advantages to a 2-year school, a lot of advantages to a 4-year school. It really depends upon who you are and again, what God's put you here to do and where you're oriented in that regard. As you take a look at this, you'll see some real advantages of a 2-year experience. one of the things that I always want to caution people a little bit about is one of the challenges of a two-year institution is if you're really looking for a four-year degree, the percentage of folks that start at a two-year community college and end up with a four-year degree is quite small, typically like less than 10%. Now, granted, a lot of people that go to a two-year community college don't need a four-year degree, so obviously they're not going to go on to that. But I want people to think about it in terms of, you know, where's the momentum going as I choose this school? You go off to a four-year school, there's going to be a pretty strong momentum to get involved in a four-year program, and we're just going to be here for 4 years, and so it's easy for kids to get kind of caught up in that tidal wave and just kind of ride that, and that will help, you know, kind of continue to move them forward into that four-year experience. It's much more difficult to go off to a two-year school knowing that I'm going to be done here in 2 years, and then what? A lot of students, unfortunately, get done with the 2 years and then never quite make that transition, that transfer to a four-year institution, and never really complete the process. That's probably the most challenging thing to consider relative to a two-year school. So if all you need is a two-year education, you know what, you are really blessed by having the resources of Rock Valley in our community, because it's a good two-year school. It's a good community college with a lot of offerings, a lot of really creative, innovative ideas that they're offering, particularly if you're interested in something in the area of nursing. They've got a good two-year program there in a variety of medical fields, plus some agreements with some institutions, one of them being St. Anthony, who actually houses their four-year program on the Rock Valley property. So you can literally start at Rock Valley, take 2 years, get a position at St. Anthony Hospital, and they'll help you pay then for the next 2 years of your nursing program that you can still take on the property of Rock Valley. They just occupy the upper 2 floors of the nursing building. So that's a great opportunity. And IU's got a great relationship with Rock Valley with this four-year engineering program. You can literally go to Rock Valley, complete a four-year engineering degree without ever leaving Rockford, and pay a fraction of what it would cost you anyplace else. So those are some great opportunities that Rock Valley offers, along with a myriad of others. But there is that concern that you need to keep in mind is it's really easy. If you really want a four-year degree, it's really easy for that track to kind of come off the rails a little bit after those 2 years. A lot of students never really make it back after that. It's also a much different college experience. So a lot of people really don't consider it much of a college experience because you don't really have a lot of campus life. You don't really have a lot of those sorts of extracurricular involvements that especially our students at a school like Rockford Lutheran are really familiar with and really comfortable with and really enjoying that sort of thing. So it's a much different experience. A lot of people think it's kind of, you know, like just barely a step up from high school and so on. So it really depends on what you're looking for. It can be a real suitable, real positive, real beneficial experience for you. It just depends on what your needs are and so on. This screen kind of gives you a little bit of detail on the percentage of people that would eventually graduate in 4 years, having gone to a two-year institution. So just something to kind of keep in mind as you take a look at what your options are for down the road. Okay, so if you're going to make a decision about a college, and as you're thinking about the 2-year, 4-year, and you kind of decide particularly that you're looking at a 4-year, now you got a lot of different options and that sort of thing. What do we do? Well, the idea is hopefully you've already started some college visits. If not, you know, here's some few pointers that you want to think about in terms of what that should look like, or some things you want to be sure to do the next time you take a trip. You know, I encourage people to kind of get off the beaten path. Nothing wrong with setting up an appointment with the admissions office and having them give you a tour. But, you know, find your way kind of off the tour path a little bit too. You'll get some good information from the admissions person who gives you that tour, but it really helps to talk to just ordinary students. And one of the easiest ways to do that is you get done with the tour and you wave goodbye to the admissions person and that sort of thing. Head over to the dining hall and just go ahead and have something to eat. Nothing wrong with, you know, eating in the college dining hall, because obviously if that's where you go, you're going to eat there quite a bit. You're going to want to make sure it works for you and that you like it. But it's going to be an easy place to find some people you can kind of sit down and talk to and really get some background information and what goes on in the school itself. Also encourage you to look at opportunities you have to talk to people that actually do the teaching. Okay, and this is something that I want to talk a little bit about, because of the fact that it's one of those sorts of things that is not necessarily in the forefront of the minds of a lot of high school students in terms of what those college classes are going to look like. Most larger state institutions are going to have a lot of lecture classes, lecture hall, type large classes for students, particularly their first 2 years, when you're doing a lot of your gen ed classes, when you're taking your basic math and your regular Englishes and your regular social studies, all the gen ed stuff that you need to get out of the way before you can really start focusing on your major. You're going to spend a lot of that time in lecture hall kind of classes, 100, 200 people in the class. The prof is way down there in the stage someplace. And to be honest, he's not going to know you. You're not ever going to talk to him. He's not going to know if you're sitting up there in the back corner surfing the net or if you're really paying attention to what he's talking about. In those cases, a lot of times you'll have that sort of a setting, like 2 days a week, and then 1 day a week you'll work with a TA, a teacher's assistant, a graduate assistant, and that sort of thing. Somebody has taken the class before and has done some advanced study in it, and therefore can help you in kind of study groups to dig into some of the things that the prof talked about the last couple of days and answer questions and that sort of thing. It's a very different kind of learning situation. For some people, obviously, it works well. A lot of people go to state universities. That's why they have those big classes and so on. But for some people, that's really a tough adjustment, not only for themselves, keeping themselves on focus, but also not having just somebody to go to and get some real help and having that relationship with the teacher that you're accustomed to having. So that can be a big change. Some universities really try to throw some numbers at you to kind of give you an idea that they really don't have those kind of classes, or they only have a few and that sort of thing. They'll give you their class average. The class average size also includes all those junior senior classes that they have that sometimes, a real specialization classes that might only have 10 people in them. So yeah, it averages out to a fairly nice sounding number. We only, we average 30 or 40 people in our class. However, recognize that because you've got a lot of classes only have 10 kids in them, you're going to have a lot of classes that have 150 kids in them. So just kind of know that going in, that's part of what you want to get a feel for at that university. Some state universities and so on really do try to minimize those types of learning experiences because that kind of becomes their niche and how they kind of identify themselves and distinguish themselves from other schools. In most cases, you're going to see private universities don't have lecture classes, lecture hall, large course offerings like that, because that's part of what you're paying for to be at a private university, is that more personal experience, that more direct contact with professors and that sort of thing. So part of what you want to think through there is, what is it that works for you? What kind of learning experience works for you? What do you feel is going to be most helpful for you academically? What's just going to feel right for you in terms of your experience with your teachers and those sorts of things. But just recognize that that's going to be one of those things that really does distinguish you quite a bit from a private institution to a state institution and that sort of thing. One of the things that's listed here is taking a look at the facilities that you're going to spend your time in. So, if you're going into something that's going to be in the medical field, spend some time in the science building and seeing what the resources are like, and get a feel as much as you can in terms of what the professors are like in that area and those sorts of things. So, spend some time visiting in the places where you're going to spend your time as a student is kind of the thing you want to think about. You want to take a look at different financial aid opportunities that exist at different schools. And some of that you'll be able to get when you do a visit. Some of it you're not going to be able to get money to the details until you get closer to the point of actually doing an application. We'll talk about FAFSA and that application process in just a little bit. One of the things I want to mention is research program opportunities can be one of those areas that really help distinguish a degree that you receive from an institution. As you think about going into your degree program, obviously you're thinking about it in terms of, okay, so what is it that's really going to get you well prepared for a career? One of the things that really distinguishes a lot of quality programs is the opportunity for you to do research, or the opportunity for you to do things hands-on, for you really to be involved in more than just the classwork of an institution. And so, getting into an institution that has a lot of research options, that has a lot of internship possibilities, can be the thing that makes a difference between, the kind of job that you get when you're going out on the job search and the kind of job that someone else gets that went to a different kind of school. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about college choices and that sort of thing as well. Things like internships and research opportunities are a great thing for you to have on your resume. as well as international educational experience, particularly if you're into something that, where being international is going to be helpful to your career. If it's a business area or finance area or politics or something like that, having an international experience is going to be huge in that regard. Where I had a student, one of my sons went to Valpo for engineering, and Valpo really prides themselves in the hands-on experience that kids get right off the bat. And so that was a huge thing for him, which also meant that by the time he was a junior or senior, he was getting involved in projects that a lot of schools didn't get to until they were in their master's program and that sort of thing. So that really helped distinguish his educational experience, and I think played a significant part in the kind of role that he was able to get, in the career he was able to get once he graduated. You also want to be looking at what sort of placement and acceptance rates do students have as they graduate from this institution and go on to graduate school. One of the things that you're going to need to look at is the fact that many more career areas today are requiring advanced degrees. When we took a look at that 1-2-7 formula before, I mentioned that, in our case, we're more of a 2 or 3 because we've got a lot of students that are going into some sort of medical professional area. And, physical therapists 15, 20 years ago, that was a bachelor's degree. Now it's a doctorate. So that's a pretty significant change over the course of a fairly short time span. So what does that mean? Here are a couple of things that you want to think about if you're thinking about a career like that that's going to involve advanced degree. As you're looking at institutions that offer different types of programs, you're going to want to say or find out, okay, so do you offer the advanced degree here on this campus, or am I going to have to graduate with a bachelor's degree here and then go to another school to get my master's and eventual doctorate in, let's say, physical therapy, that sort of thing. Okay, so that's one option. It's a lot of change around schools and that sort of thing. Is that what you're interested in? Is that okay with you? It could be, because you really want to go to pretty high-end graduate school. That's all great too. But you could also be in a situation where you want to look at, all right, is there a way in which I can end up with this master's degree or get into this doctoral program a little bit quicker and not spend quite so much time in school, and obviously spend not quite so much money and that sort of thing too. Some schools have programs where they'll kind of start to combine the master's classes with the bachelor's classes before your 4th year is done. And so they'll put together a 5-year master's degree program that obviously saves you some time and some money, or a 6 or 7 year doctoral program that again saves you some time and some money. So that can be something helpful to look for as you're talking to different institutions. The other thing you want to think about is what sort of admissions program they have for that. A lot of schools will have what they call a direct admit program. Here's one of the really important things for you to think about and that you have to realize as you're taking a look at college applications. There's one thing that is involved in terms of you applying and getting accepted to a university. It's another process applying and getting accepted into a particular degree program in that university, okay? I got accepted into Concordia University, Nebraska when I graduated from high school and went and started going to school there. By the end of my sophomore year, I had to apply to be a part of the secondary education program and be accepted into the secondary education program in order to continue and eventually get a degree, okay? A lot of programs are like that now, and particularly some of the more advanced medical areas, again, like physical therapy or some other sorts of higher level nursing activities are available to people in medical profession now and that sort of thing. What you run into is a situation in which a student gets accepted to the school, but they don't necessarily, after a couple of years, get accepted into the program that they wanted to be involved with. Well, now what do? Now you've got a situation where here I am at this school. I thought I was going to get a career degree in this area, but I didn't get accepted into the program. Now what do I do instead? That can be pretty traumatic, pretty difficult, and very costly, because now you might end up having to change another whole different degree field, and you've taken a couple of years of classes, some of which will be of no use to you now, and now you're looking at 5 years maybe just to get a bachelor's degree. That's pretty costly in a lot of different ways. What some schools have is what they call a direct admit program. You apply to the university and you apply to your degree program at the same time. And so when they send you your application acceptance, they're saying, okay, you've not only gotten into our university, you've gotten into our physical therapy program. You've gotten into our university, you've also gotten into this nursing program. You've also gotten into this pre-med program, et cetera. So that direct admit process can be very helpful, because now you don't have to worry about what happens in a couple of years when I have to apply to be in that program. You're in from the beginning, and you're good to go from there on. So ask questions about what kinds of programs and what kinds of admission policies schools have for those specific programs that you might be interested in. One other thing I want to mention relative to college and that sort of thing is the whole idea of distance. I talk a lot with students, and a lot of them will say, I don't really want to go that far away from home, and I get that. There can be some very legitimate reasons for that, and everybody's situation is different. I encourage students to be okay with traveling. Okay, be okay with being far from home, because you're going to find that's a phenomenal growth experience for you. It'll probably be a phenomenal growth experience for your parents too. Okay, and that's a good thing. But the idea of being ready to take this step to move from high school to college, being ready to take the step to move from living at home with mom and dad to, yeah, I'm going to be on my own, and that's going to be a challenge. But you know what? I think I'm ready. I really want to be ready, and I want to go do this. And you're going to find that experience is going to be really a growth experience for you. It's also going to be something that really builds some confidence in you and your ability to just pick up and go somewhere and be able to take care of yourself. And I'm going to get sick when I'm at school too. And now mom's a long way away, and she's not going to tuck me in at night, that kind of thing. Well, you know what? I'm going to deal with that. I'll figure it out and make it work. And that's part of growing up. I was really, I think, blessed with an opportunity that the school that I attended was an 18-hour drive from home, back when the speed limit was 55, and all sorts of stories like that too. But the bottom line was, my folks dropped me off in August. I didn't go home till Christmas. And that was pretty much how all 4 years worked. And so there I was there on my own, doing my own thing and responsible for myself. And that was a great growing experience. I think it was good for my parents in a lot of respects too. And so that's something I just encourage you to consider as something that it can be a really helpful part of it. Don't shy away from a school that you really feel good about, that you really feel comfortable in, just because of distance. So just something to think about. All right, so when you're making that visit, what do you look for? We talked a little bit about the culture of the campus when we talked about, what kind of size it is, and, is it urban, suburban, that sort of thing, or, the culture of the campus can have to do with, do you have a lot of lecture hall kind of classes, or do you have more of the classroom, 20, 30 people in, and your professor's name and they know your name and that sort of thing. Those sorts of things are all different aspects of the culture. Campus size and location and cost issues are part of that. So, take a look at the majors, take a look at the different types of graduate opportunities that they have, as we talk about the direct entry program and that sort of thing. Something else I'll throw out, the last item there, the summer enhancement programs. This will be the last summer, obviously, you'll be able to do that, but a lot of students find it a good growth experience to get involved in a summer program at a university. It could be, a pre-engineering kind of a thing, or a pre-med type of thing, or a pre-law type of thing, all sorts of different options are available for stuff like that, a business experience, that kind of thing. But in a weekend or a week-long program, you can go and first of all, learn an awful lot about that career field, and come away from that being much more confident. And yes, this is definitely something I'm interested in. I want to continue to pursue that. That can be the most valuable week that you ever spend, because to go to a university and spend a couple years there and then realize that's not really the major that you want. Okay, you just wasted. Well, I shouldn't say wasted. You just spent a couple of years of life going a different direction than you're going to end up going, and you spent a lot of money on classes that you're not going to be able to use now. That was a really expensive change of decision. You go and take a week-long summer enhancement program and realize there that this isn't the career that I thought it was going to be, and I'm really not interested in that. That's a huge cost savings for you, because all you lost was a week and maybe a few $100s. But it can really also be a good confirmation that, yeah, this is really where I want to go. Also realize those summer enhancement programs are a great opportunity for you to learn about that college, and a great opportunity for that college to learn about you. So that becomes a time and a place where you can really enhance your opportunity to get into a really top tier school, because you go there, make a good showing at their summer program, that's going to be noticed, and when that application comes in, they're going to take that into account. So think about that as another way that that you can kind of visit a campus, so to speak, in a little bit different fashion and really benefit from that. This next few slides here are kind of taking us a little bit different direction, but it's really a direction I really want you to give some serious thought to. This was something I picked up from a Gallup poll about, what does a great life look like? And so it talks about purpose. How do you want to occupy your time? What do you want to do each day? And the idea of this poll really had to do with, a person's life after they get a career and a house and that sort of thing. What sort of things make that time spent for those 20, 30, 40, 50 years of married life or whatever, what really makes it a great life? And these are the types of things that it talks about. But I want you guys to think about it as you think about college is, okay, what's a great life on campus going to look like for me? And it's going to start with the same 5 things really. Okay, what's the purpose and what's my purpose and how am I going to occupy my time here? What am I going to do each day? Is it going to be something I'm really going to be energized about and something I'm really going to be interested in? Is this going to be a place and this is going to be a thing that I'm going to get involved with? It's going to occupy my time. I'm really going to feel good about. What about the social opportunities that are going to be here for me? Is this a drive-in kind of a campus where there's a bunch of people here Monday through Friday and everybody's gone on the weekend? Okay, that's a much different culture than a school that's really a residential school where everybody's just there for 7 days a week, and that really becomes an important part of what shapes the culture of that school and it shapes the experience that you have. So, what's the social life going to be like? What are you interested in? Is that going to be a great life for you? The financial side of what your school decision is a part of too. If you're going to spend the whole time totally stressed about how you're going to pay for this college experience and what the loans are going to look like when you're done, that kind of stress is not going to make it a good experience for you. So think about that. What about the community that you're going to be involved in? Is this a community where you're going to want to be involved? Is it going to be physically a community that you're going to be comfortable with? And does it just seem like the kind of people that you really enjoy being about, and their values are parallel with yours and that sort of thing? Does that community feel well for you? And is it going to be someplace where you're just going to feel comfortable physically because you like to get out and climb mountains? So a lot of great colleges in Colorado that'll fill that bill, that's for sure. But it could be something where you want to be someplace warmer so that you can get out because you like to run, and that's an important part of your physical well-being and so on. So look at these areas of what a great life looks like as also being areas about what a great college life looks like and how that fits into the decisions that you want to make. There's there are a lot of schools out there that have great engineering programs. There are a lot of schools out there that have great business programs. A lot of schools out there that have great pre-med programs. So how do you choose? Well, you obviously want to make sure the program fits what you're looking for, but there's probably going to be a lot of schools that fit that bill. So what else do you look at that's going to be key? I want you to think about some of these categories that I think can be an important part of that process too. There's some more research that was done by Gallup for Purdue, actually, that talked about some important emotional support elements that are part of a successful college experience. So as you take a look at that top row there, you see, at least one professor who made me excited about learning. And pretty good percentage of students had that experience. But then, how many students, and they were looking at this particularly in larger universities, which are more typical, obviously, but how many people had experience where the professor really cared for them as a person? 27%. That doesn't seem real encouraging. Or a mentor who encouraged me for my goals and dreams, only 22%. And only 14% of all graduates experienced all 3 of those elements in a lot of larger institutions, especially. So, think about, are those sorts of things important to you? Then, that needs to be a part of what you shop for as you're taking a look at different schools. What about your experiential learning elements? Is it important for you to have some kind of long-term project that's going to be a big deal for you to complete, and you're going to really feel confident and positive about accomplishing that? Some students obviously don't ever have that experience. Is that important to you? Something to look for. What about an internship or a job where you applied your learning to some kind of benefit and profession and program and that sort of thing? Again, as you take a look at some of these sorts of things, they're found to be important, but it's also indicated that not a lot of colleges offer those experiences. So think about these sorts of things. Are these sorts of experiential learning elements important to you? Be deliberate about looking for schools that are going to provide you with that, because not all schools do. One of the things I like to talk about is the fact that, really think about a college experience. It's not a commodity. It's not just something you buy and you put in your time and you're done. It really is something that is going to change you. It's transforming. It's a transforming experience. I've heard one college president give a presentation at a new student orientation that I think was really significant. He said, the most important thing to understand about the college selection process is to understand the culture of the school that you're going to attend, because the culture of that school will change you. I thought it really is quite profound. You know, it's something that we don't always give enough time to thinking about. But if you're going to be someplace for 24/7, 300 ballpark for 4 years, the people you're around, the things that you do, what you experience in that culture, it's going to change you. What kind of person do you want to be in 4 years? What do you want to look like? What values do you want to have as a person? What do you want to hold to, and what do you want to consider important in your life when you make that walk across the college stage? Well, you need to be thinking about, what's this school look like? And is this a school that's going to help me transform into who I want to be? Not, is this a school that's going to give me a diploma that's going to get me a great job? Okay, having a job obviously has some merits, but not if you don't like who you've become. So think about that role that a college plays, particularly in helping you grow into being a new person, transforming yourself, and think about, okay, what school is going to provide me the opportunity to become who I want to be? What do I want to look like in 4 years? What university is going to get me there? There's some research here, and there's some more information about this on Counselor's Corner. There was a research project that was done by a number of Lutheran universities comparing themselves to state flagship universities. So comparing Lutheran universities to like Urbana-Champaign and UW-Madison, schools like that. Now, the results came back specific to Lutheran universities. However, the results, I don't think, are really representative of just Lutheran universities. A lot of these results are really specifically representative of the distinction between a public university and a private university. So I want you to take some time. I really encourage you to take a look at the research that they had there. There's a few things that are mentioned here on a couple of these slides that are helpful for you to look at. But the bottom line is, it comes back to, you know, what are the other intangibles of the college experience that are going to be important to you? What sort of things are really going to be meaningful to you as a person? You see some information here about Lutheran College alumni, but again, think of it in terms of a private school versus a public school that really felt that they had a personal relationship with their professors, that had conversations, meaningful conversations with their professors, that felt that they had a mentor, and so on. And, you know, we saw in that Gallup survey just a little bit ago, those were things that most people consider pretty important part of their college experience. Well, does the school you're looking at provide you with that? And what is that distinction between public and private universities in that regard? We're going to talk a little bit here pretty soon about the college costs, obviously a significant factor. One of the things I want to be sure to talk about as we do that is to recognize that some people, particularly people who have sent their kids to Rockford Lutheran, because they said, we spent the last 4 years paying tuition to go to high school, I can't afford private college tuition now on top of all that. That really is very much a misnomer, and we'll talk about some of the details of that in a few slides. But what I want you to think about is the fact that there's a huge variability in college costs nowadays, and unfortunately, because of state funding issues and so on, some state universities are not near as cost effective as they used to be. Unfortunately, that's particularly the case in Illinois. Illinois is #1 in the nation in brain drain. In other words, more students leave Illinois to go to college someplace else than any other state in the union. That's a pretty difficult thing to swallow, but it's just a reality of the condition that our state is in at this point. But you know, that also means there are some private university options that are available here in the Midwest and beyond that are going to be every bit as cost effective as a state university. So don't automatically say going into this process that, look, we can't even think about a private university because that's impossible. You know, I'll talk to you about some options here. In fact, there's some handouts again in the packet of information that's going to be available for you on the website that are going to give you some details about scholarship opportunities and so on that are certainly very affordable. We've got students, alumni of ours, who are involved in private university experiences that are paying not as much or barely more to go to college than they pay to go to high school. And so, that really is something that's a potential in the future of many of our students. So we'll talk about that a little more later, but I just don't want you to close your thoughts to that opportunity, because we've got a lot of kids, for example, at Grand Canyon University. We've got a special relationship with them because they like getting our kids to their school. So they'll give you $4,000 a year extra scholarship just because you went to Rockford Lutheran. Okay, well, that's going to help bring their costs down quite a bit. And we do have kids that are going there for less than what they pay to go to Rockford Lutheran. So just think about those sorts of things. So let's get into that topic now about college and how we pay for it. This shows you a little bit about what's happened in terms of college costs. And one of the things you obviously see is that the cost of public four-year institutions has increased quite significantly in the last number of years. And that's part of what's creating that reality where in many cases you can go to a private a university for the same money that you can go to a public university. One of the things that this slide really picks up on is the fact that there's a huge difference between, as you take a look at the top, the published tuition and fees and room and board, and then you look at the dotted orange line down below and the net tuition, fees, room and board. Okay, in other words, nobody pays a sticker price. Okay, well, I suppose some people do, but not very many. The point is, and the blue lines just show the same thing: published tuition and fees without room and board, and then the net tuition and fees without room and board. And you see, again, there's a pretty significant difference. In most private universities, 90+% of the students are getting financial aid of a variety of sources. So that's just a reality. And again, that's part of what you certainly want to be talking with people about when you make college visits and learn more about institutions. FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. That's it's a set of documents that you'll fill out that most people will say is a lot easier to fill out than TADS. So if you're experienced with TADS, you'll find FAFSA a piece of cake. We'll learn a lot more about FAFSA in the fall. We have one whole evening program that's just for financial aid for college. So that we'll talk about more detail in the fall. But the idea is it's basically a form that you fill out that explains what your family income is and family assets look like. And then they use that to determine, for example, what your expected family contribution is that you see here. FAFSA.gov is a site where you'll go to work on that. Studentaid.gov, you can get some information about it there. Gentlemen will need to register for the draft as a part of the process of filling out FAFSA. The student aid report basically says this is the level of aid that you qualify for, and then this is what your family is expected to contribute. And those contribution numbers for your family don't change if you go to a school that costs $50,000 a year, or if you go to a school that costs $20,000 a year. If based on income and assets, your family can only afford to pay $5,000 a year, then that's your EFC. Now that means you could qualify for a little bit more in terms of grants and loans and that sort of thing. Are they going to guarantee that if you want to go to a $50,000 university, they'll pay the rest of the cost? No, it doesn't work that way. But you do start the process by letting FAFSA know this is our income, this is our assets, and then FAFSA shares that information with the colleges that you are interested in. And then those colleges, when they come back to you, and this is why it talks about an October 1 entry date, in October, you'll fill out the FAFSA, and you'll fill it out based on tax forms that you're doing right now. The 2019 tax year will be what you use for the FAFSA for that next senior year, for that freshman year of college. What you'll do is when you apply to college, you'll also send them your FAFSA. So when they send you back a letter of acceptance, they'll also send you back your financial aid package. And that's the intent of the process, kind of dovetailing like that, so that you can also get your information about how much the school will cost all at the same time you're getting your acceptance. Two basic types of scholarships. Some of them are need-based. That's primarily based on the FAFSA, as we were talking before. Then you've got the whole area of merit-based. And this is where a lot of private universities really are aggressive, because they're looking for students that have a lot of artistic capability. We've got a lot of students every year that graduate from here with music scholarships. Frequently students with drama scholarships, and sometimes students are going off to art institutes and that sort of thing as well. Very, very common for our students, and there's some good money in those areas. So if you've got some music gifts, especially, certainly encourage you to continue to make use of that. Do your HSA solo ensemble competitions, because that's a dry run for your college music auditions. Okay, so keep doing that. Take advantage of those experiences. Athletic opportunities are available there too. People get the idea that all sorts of kids get full rides for athletics. Yeah, not really. Yeah, there are some, but most athletic scholarships are much less than that. However, they certainly still help. So if that's your gift, continue to pursue that as well. Realize though that the big money in scholarships is in grades. The biggest money is going to come from students that have got a good solid GPA, taking good classes, and they've got good test scores. That's where the real money is going to be. So certainly pursue all those areas that you're gifted in, but realize that spending all sorts of extra time in the sports scene and not having enough time to get all your homework done and pre-calc and physics, that's probably not going to be real beneficial to you down the road, because the chances are you're going to get more money for doing a good job in the math and the science than you will in terms of some of those athletic experiences. So just kind of balance that out. Again, use the gifts that God gave you, but keep everything in proportion, and realize that the academic element is going to be what really makes the biggest difference in terms of your college experience in a lot of ways. So the free money is scholarships, and most of that comes from the school that you'll be attending. Got a graph on that in just a little bit. There's some free money that comes in grants, federal grants, Pell grants. Again, those are all income based. State grants and MAP grants in Illinois are also income based, that are for students that stay in school in Illinois. But that's one of those that you really need to apply for that early, because that opens in October. There have been some years when that money's been gone by Thanksgiving. Depends on how much the state assembly allocates each year, but that's why you've got to be ready to get your applications in, because you need to in order to qualify for that, you've got to turn in your FAFSA and you've got to apply to an Illinois school. So that gets you in line for the MAP grant, but you need to be ready to do that in October because it runs out. That gives you a little bit of graphic of how much of the money that a lot of colleges give out come from the college themselves. Some of it's student loans, some of it's work study, et cetera, but most of it comes from the foundations and the resources of the university itself, particularly in the case of the private university. Before I forgot to mention too, this whole graphic and this whole presentation night will be recorded and posted on our Counselor's Corner site, so you'll be able to take a look at all this information later. You don't have to write all this down as we're cruising through it. One of the things that comes up has to do with transcripts, because that'll be one of the first things you need to send to university if you're going to be making applications and so on. Virtually everything you have to do with transcripts nowadays is handled electronically. Almost no one takes a paper copy of a transcript, and most of that's done through an organization called Parchment. It's actually an organization that the state of Illinois does pay for your students to send their transcripts free until the August after their senior year. So from now until August after your senior year, you can send a transcript anywhere, as many as you want, through Parchment, and there's no cost. We'll talk about that more when we get into August of your senior year, but if you need to get something sooner than that, come and see me and I can help you with the Parchment process, and we'll talk you through getting that going and so on. These are just some other websites, some other resources for you in terms of looking into different colleges and looking into different career options and looking into some scholarship interests and those sorts of things. This is all available again on Counselor's Corner, and this post will again be included on our Counselor's Corner webpage as well, so you'll be able to check those out a little bit later. Staying connected, again, there's information there about Counselor's Corner, and we do have a Guidance Office Facebook page. Something for you to look at. That's where we post all kinds of information about summer enhancement programs, so take a look at the Facebook page. You can also start looking at that in terms of scholarships, because that's where we post a lot of information about scholarships that are available. You start taking a look at that now. Obviously, it's not going to be beneficial to you now, but it'll give you kind of a feel for what's going to be available to you next year, because typically the same organizations offer the same scholarships from year to year. So feel free to take a look at that and check that out. There's some other resources, remind.com. That's the setting for students. It's a texting system that I use to send information to students about upcoming college rep visits and testing information, that sort of thing. Parents are certainly welcome to sign up for that too. Your students can help you with that. Then in the Illinois Career Information System we talked about before. Again, I want to mention there's a lot of resources and handouts that are available for you that'll be online on Counselor's Corner, that sort of thing too. There's a kind of a checklist of things I should be doing during my 11th grade year, and then doing during the summer, and doing during my 12th grade year, that sort of thing. One of the ways in which you can make college a lot more affordable is our dual credit program. Definitely encourage students, you need to have a 3.0 GPA. but we can get you a ton of college credit, and you can start working on that now if you'd like to, and work on it over the summer, and then not only take our dual credit classes here, but some others as well. Easy for students to finish the semester of college before they leave here at Rockford Lutheran, and in many cases can do more than that. So look at that, and this is a list of schools that some of the schools that have already told us this is how we'll transfer your credit. Very few issues with credit transfer situations with our dual credit. Information here about paying for college scholarships. There's some stuff from Grand Canyon University. There's information on here from NCAA, other particular universities and their scholarship programs and that sort of thing and how those work. 4 steps to college checklist. There's another 11th grade college checklist and so on. Just a variety of resources available for you. So encourage you to take a look at those. Those are all available again on our school website. So certainly feel free to send in any questions that you might have. Certainly be glad to offer those at this time, or if you want to just send in some emails and that sort of thing, you can catch me at any time here. Just dcourts@rockfordlutheran.org. Be glad to fill you in on whatever information I can share about whatever questions that you have. So thanks for joining us tonight. Hope it was a helpful experience for you, and certainly look forward to continuing to work with you and your students as we continue down the journey of getting ready for an exciting college career. Thanks for joining us tonight, and have a good evening.